Bitcoin fails, it is a catastrophic disaster for humankind because we have one shot at sound money and it's the most important opportunity possible, right? If Nostr fails tomorrow, what did we lose? Nada. We lost some content. Content is worthless in the digital age. Maybe we lost some reputations and stuff like that amongst some people, but honestly, it's so small that it doesn't fucking matter. And also, the reputations are generally tied to real people. I've been banned on Twitter 10 times. I come back, I get a new account, I get all my followers back, right? So it doesn't matter. So it's not like the cost of losing one is completely different to the cost of losing the other. Yes, there's some relationship between the two, but the level of importance, man, is like fucking galaxies apart. Like Bitcoin is 1 billion times more important than Nostr. If Nostr fails tomorrow, another implementation will be developed and another one will take off. But if Bitcoin fails, whew, Jesus Christ, we've all got problems.
Hello guys, welcome once again to a new season actually of BitCorner podcast. Today we start season 5. So before starting the podcast, I just want to say thanks to you. Thank you for being part of this amazing project and thank you for these 2 wonderful years. We have been recording about 2 seasons per year. Today we're going to start the 5th year. And you're hearing this probably is the beginning of January of 2026 or probably the end of the year in December. Yeah. What can you expect in this new season? Basically the same. As you know, BitCorner podcast is a bit different from the rest of the Bitcoin podcast out there in the world. And why? Because we play the long time preference game. So that means that from time to time we cover the things that are happening around the world in the current time. But we actually, because again, we're focusing on the long time preference, that's why our podcast is educational content exclusively, or better said, primarily, because we do from time to time cover some things that are related to economy, politics that probably are huge in that moment or that actually impact El Salvador or surround it somehow that, yeah, in fact, we need to cover. But those are the exceptions. So, but why do we do that? Because it doesn't matter if you start the podcast, for example, to listen to season 3, 2, 4, or 1. Today, it doesn't matter because we're playing the long time preference. So if you can watch an episode of the previous seasons, the value will be and remain the same. So that's something that we want to provide to El Salvador. So it doesn't matter if you are Salvadorian, but also any person from any part of the world. If you can have any benefit to listen to this podcast and learning about Bitcoin, no matter where you listen, you will learn about it. And the value will remain the same because it's not something that is happening right now. It's beyond that. It's related to the core values of Bitcoin. So that's why we are a little bit different from the rest of the podcast. And I'm not saying that those are bad. On the contrary, they are the perfect creators on those topics. And that's why we're leaving to them, because I think they do a better job than myself on those topics. So what do you expect again in this season? Well, we will continue doing these kind of topics in Bitcoin, but also we're going to talk about a little bit more about Nostr. And we're going to start the season with that. Today we're going to talk about Nostr, more specifically about Satlantis. So Satlantis, if you know Jordi or if you know Alex, who is the one that's going to be our guest today, they have been working in this project that is Satlantis, which not just involve Bitcoin, but also Nostr, but also AI. So I think it's quite interesting. And for my surprise, when we do this recording, I was thinking that we were going to talk a little bit more about Nostr, but in fact, we end up talking a little bit more of Bitcoin. So it was quite interesting. I love it. I learned a lot from Alex. And I hope that you can learn as well. I must say that this episode was recorded a few weeks ago, today that I'm recording. And then I went to holidays and then I started planning the road of the season 5. So what you're gonna see today is actually a recording that happened a few weeks before. But from the rest of the episodes, it will be the actual season recording, season 5. So I just want to say thank you to Alex for doing the recording. And I hope that you get excited with this episode, but also the next one. And again, as you know, the podcast is bilingual. So which means that if you're hearing this, you'll listen in English. But if you're watching this, you can see that we have Spanish subtitles. And when we have recordings in Spanish, you will have English subtitles. So that way we close the gap. And you can say, Juan, but why don't you use AI dub? And the reason is that I just don't like it. So I won't do it. For me, it's very unnatural. And I prefer that the people talk in the language that they can be more fluent. So if it is English, if it is Spanish, let's go for that. And so you can learn from their voice and not from an artificial intelligence. Let's be the most humans possible. So I think that's it. Season 5 will have a lot of surprises in the road. I just want to say once again, thanks to you, the listener, but also I would just want to say thank you to my partners from Blockstream to be here since the beginning, but also BitBlockBoom, Gary Leland is an amazing friend, also adopting Bitcoin. Guys, you have made an amazing job this year, like every single year. But I also want to shout out to the rest of the meetups and conferences that happened in El Salvador in November. November is basically the month of El Salvador, Bitcoin country. I was following Bitcoin Nostr AI, was amazing. Also, I want to shout out to Economia BTC from Berlin, but also I want to shout out to the conferences and all of course, the Bitcoin farmer market and all the amazing Bitcoin communities that are evolving little by little in El Salvador, and that we can show more how El Salvador is transforming by the daily life, but also in these meetings or in these conferences. So I just want to say thank you to all my partners, to you, and also last but not least to the Bitcoin conference, which is another partner, and also the amazing guys that we have done these side projects with the guys of the Bitcoin Film Fest. So yeah, hopefully we'll have more recordings with them. So I think that's it. Everything that I want to say for now. So let's leave it here. And I just want to tell you, enjoy the beginning of season 5 of BitCorner podcast. All right. I'll leave you with myself and Alex. So see you right now. Welcome to the podcast.
Gracias, Juan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're working in heavy stuff. Satlantis is one that actually I learned about that because of Jordi. So shout out to Jordi. I know that he watched the podcast as well. So and he gave me a test of this, and I think the beta, and I try it, and it's cool, man. So we're gonna discuss about that. But I think a good idea is to start from the beginning. For those probably that are new to it, actually Nostr is quite new in a way. So if you can explain what is Nostr and why does it matter for the future of communication, privacy, and sovereignty?
See, okay. I mean, I don't know about privacy and sovereignty, honestly. I think those I don't know how much Nostr really helps with those, and that might be a contrarian opinion. For me, maybe somewhat the sovereignty element, because the nature of Nostr is that your identity is a bearer instrument, a bit like how Bitcoin is a bearer instrument, right? So there's a similarity there. But honestly, I think that's where the similarity between Bitcoin and Nostr stops, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute.
Okay.
But beyond that, the way I would define Nostr really simply is identity protocol for the web. Many people call it a social protocol. And while that is somewhat true, because it's quite versatile, and the nature of being able to create metadata like follower lists and natively on the protocol means that it's primarily being used as a social content protocol these days. But I think where the utility is that it's almost like an identity as a service or a social graph as a service that you could build applications on and give them some sort of social context that they may not have been able to have before. So in our case, we've sort of evolved Satlantis into more of an events app now. and I'll talk about our evolution during the call. But for us, we're now less and less interested in content and more interested in tooling. And the tool specifically is like a kind of like a meetup and Eventbrite, but with Bitcoin ticketing and a social layer powered by Nostr. So to come back to your question, like I view Nostr as like if the internet has 4 layers today, it's sort of like the base layer, TCP, IP, and then HTTPS. With Bitcoin and Nostr, we have another 2 layers. We have 2 new layers. We have the monetary layer, and now we have an identity layer. And what you can build on top of that stack is things that you couldn't build on the stack of just 4 layers. So that to me is exciting. That's the way I kind of look at Nostr, is it's a new layer for the internet that enables us, it gives us a new design space for applications. I think we're very early in the kinds of applications that are being built, but we at Satlantis are going to try and do something unique with this stack that hopefully hasn't been done before, hasn't been done in a great way. So that's my attempt to kind of define Nostr. Identity layer for the web.
And how do you explain the difference between a protocol and a platform?
Yeah, I mean, a platform is a product, so a platform is an application that is built on top of protocols, whereas a protocol is not a product. It's not an application. A protocol is just it's a kind of like a messaging medium. So it's very different in that sense. And I think this is maybe one of the confusions around Nostr, is that, a lot of people view Nostr as competition to Twitter, but they're conflating protocol with a platform. And I don't think that's the right thing. And people sort of look at it as like a failed Twitter. They're like, oh, okay, well, it's not that fucking great, but I don't think that's what it is. I think, Primal is competing with Twitter, and that's a different story, but not Nostr, right? And this is sometimes, gets people confused, I think, because, for example, products like Primal and Damus, and even us to some degree, we market Nostr instead of marketing our products. And then people, use it not because of the product, but because of Nostr, and like things get a little bit messy there. I think we need to start separating the two, and focusing on like building good products that use Nostr in the stack.
Yeah. And what is the ANAP approach, as Nostr as possible? You use that a lot.
Yeah, I spoke about this in when we met actually in Barcelona. So I spoke about this on stage there. So I basically said, look, Nostr. Well, let's even take Nostr out of the equation here. Protocols in general move at a slower pace than businesses, right? A business has to find, particularly if you're a tech product, you have to find product market fit. You have to get customers, and you have to survive. You have to do something useful, and you need to do that in a relatively short period of time. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years maximum, sort of in that range. A protocol, on the other hand, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years, right? Like, HTTPS has been around for what now? 35? No, what am I talking about? Like almost 40 years now, right? So it's been around, and, and we're still, honestly, I believe we're still in the early days of the internet. Like the internet is still like growing. Bitcoin, what is it now? 16 years old, 17 years old? Yeah. So it takes time, right? Nostr is 3 years old. Maybe 3.5, like it's still young, it's still a baby, which means that if we try and build products that are all like fully Nostr compatible, but have really shit user interface, or really clunky, or really slow, or really bad user experience, but they're on Nostr, we've achieved nothing, because we've just pissed off the customers. They're not going to come back. Maybe a few hardcore people will stick around, but most people will go away, will leave. So then the business disappears. And then the protocol suffers because now the businesses aren't building on there, right? So as Nostr as possible is sort of like a framework which says, okay, start with the customer in mind and use the elements of Nostr that make the most sense to enhance the product for the customer. And if there's something that could be built on Nostr, but it takes away from the experience or makes the experience for the customer worse, don't fucking do it on Nostr. Don't make it an event kind. Don't try and do it because Nostr, like that's cultish thinking. What you do is, because it makes sense for the customer and the business, get the business right first, and then once you've fleshed out the product, once you've fleshed out the feature, once you've proven that it can deliver some value to the customer, to the end user, then later you can turn that feature into a NIP that others, you can turn that into a standard, then others can then adopt. So it's like, make it work first, prove that you have a business, prove that you have a product, and then, turn it into a Nostr feature. And that's something like, people have asked me many times. They're like, oh, well, is this part of your app built on Nostr? Is this part of your app Nostr compatible? I'm like, well, no, because we don't even know whether this is useful to users. Like we're building it. We need to validate that first. We need to know that the energy and the resources that we have, which are very limited, we're a startup, we have limited resources. We need to know that this thing is actually going to move the needle, and then fuck yeah, we'll come and nostrify it. So that's my philosophy there. I know some people don't agree with that, but I think as a business owner, that's my priority is making sure the business works and making sure the customers are happy. My priority is not making sure Nostr survives. Nostr is bigger than me. Now, I need to focus on what's I can control, not the thing that I can't control.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was asking you about before about the difference between a protocol and the platforms, because one thing that we have discussed a lot in Bitcoin lately, and probably by the time you're watching this, I think there's a discussion of that, is the war between Bitcoin core and nuts, but there's also the protocol wars that probably is not in the media as much as these things right now in Bitcoin. Actually, I read a little bit of that in one of the articles in Substack that be on the feed. So I want to talk a little bit about also how does Nostr compare to other protocols or platform, like Mastodon uses for example, ActivityPub. Blue Sky uses the AT protocol. So AT Prot, I don't know what is the name, or Blue Sky. But also, how does Nostr compare to them, and why do you think those misses the point of what Nostr tried to do?
I mean, whether they miss the point or not, I guess, is beyond my technical expertise, honestly. We selfishly, as an entrepreneur, and us selfishly as a business and as a team, if I'm being purely honest, we looked at Nostr and we found it simpler than the other stuff, more open, so more permissionless. We didn't have to fuck around with trying to build on it. We liked the fact that Nostr was stateless. I mean, it has some pros and cons, obviously, but I think it's more pros than cons. And sort of the tightness with Bitcoin was very important for us. Like, we didn't implement Bitcoin functionality into the app early on because we wanted to, once again, we wanted to find value outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber, which quite honestly, from a content perspective, we didn't succeed. But that being said, Bitcoin was always a very important piece to us. We were always going to come and build a wallet into Atlantis and build Zaps and all of that sort of thing. So they were sort of the reasons why we went with Nostr. One thing I will say though is I was writing a very short article recently on the difference between Bitcoin and Nostr, and this is related to your point about the different protocols for identity. I would argue that Bitcoin, the implementation, is more important than Bitcoin, the idea. Okay? And what I mean by that is, like, Bitcoin, the idea, has been replicated 50,000 times with every shitcoin in the world, right? So every shitcoin is like copying the idea. So it's not the idea that matters, and it's like, you can fork Bitcoin as many times as you want if you have a better, version of the idea, but they don't fucking matter. What matters is the implementation and the chain that goes all the way back to the Genesis block. What matters is the node software that everyone's running and the fact that they're all in sync. That's what matters. But with Nostr, I think it's the opposite way around. I think the idea is more important than the implementation. And what I mean by that is the idea of Nostr is an identity layer for the web, where the identity is a bearer instrument or a public-private key pair that the user controls and can generate randomly, right? That idea is more important. Whether Nostr succeeds or not doesn't really matter, in my opinion. Like, or maybe I'll explain it this way. If Bitcoin fails tomorrow, the world is fucked. Like, that's a catastrophic disaster. Like, if Bitcoin fails, creating a new Bitcoin from scratch, fucking impossible. It's not going to happen.
That's true.
Like that happened once. It's a 0 to 1 moment, right? If Bitcoin fails, it is a catastrophic disaster for humankind because we have one shot at sound money and it's the most important opportunity possible, right? If Nostr fails tomorrow, what did we lose?
Not much.
Some content? Nada, right? We lost some content. Content is worthless in the digital age.
Yeah.
Maybe we lost some reputations and stuff like that amongst some people, but honestly, it's so small that it doesn't fucking matter. And also, the reputations are generally tied to real people. So, I've been banned on Twitter 10 times. I come back, I get a new account, I get all my followers back, right? So it doesn't matter. So it's not like the cost of losing one is completely different to the cost of losing the other. And this is something I've noticed in the Nostr space is people like orange pill, purple pill, orange pill, purple pill. It's like, oh yeah, Nostr and Bitcoin are the same. Yes, there's some relationship between the two, but the level of importance, man, is like fucking galaxies apart. Like Bitcoin is a billion times more important than Nostr. Like Nostr can come and go, doesn't matter. If Nostr fails tomorrow, another implementation will be developed and another one will take off. That's perfectly fucking fine. And we as a business will pick the next great implementation of a digital layer for identity for the web. That's what we'll do. But if Bitcoin fails, whew, Jesus Christ, we've all got problems.
Yeah, well, now that you're talking about, finish your idea.
So what I'll finish on is, there is other protocols that are kind of trying to deliver on a similar promise to Nostr. I personally think that Nostr is the best implementation so far. I think that it has the highest probability of winning, but I'm also pragmatic and objective enough to admit that it may not be the implementation that ultimately transforms the web and acts as the digital layer for the new web. But I hope it is, because we've spent a shitload of energy building on there, and I hope it's fucking the one that wins. So yeah.
No, that I was just gonna say that now that you mentioned this is that also I was just thinking that, for example, in the other protocols, the thing is that in the end there's things like they have. I think some of them have their own federations that is something that there are companies that follows their own protocols and they try to be decentralized. But as we use the word also in Bitcoin, that compared to shitcoins, that there are, which means decentralized in name only, right?
In name only.
So, but the beauty of Nostr is that you can actually pick your own algorithm or protocol or whatever, so you can check your own feed, timeline, or whatever, because it's pretty decentralized, right? But yeah, besides that, I think probably the most important thing that we can lose in Nostr, in my opinion, is the free speech somehow, because in the other platforms you can be banned, but here in Nostr, I think not. So whatever you said, you can say it and you won't be banned, either a content or an idea or anything. But I don't know.
Maybe that's not entirely true, because the content itself, it's not hard to get the relays to delete your content if they want to. I guess you could just run your own relay if you really have content that's going to be censored. But I don't know. I'm not convinced that that's a big enough factor these days.
Okay.
I just don't think enough people, like, at least maybe it's valid for a small percentage of people, but I don't think it's valid for a real market, like, that is meaningful. And maybe that's a contrarian view. I'm just no longer bullish on the censorship resistant side of things. I think censorship resistance is very important for money. I don't think it's important for social content.
All right. Well, you mentioned also, you talk a little bit about Bitcoin and Nostr, but there's also another element nowadays that is AI. So how do you think the three of them converge, and what's actually happening there?
Yeah, so I think where they converge, or where the similarities lie, is that they are just tools, right? And I think everyone has a tendency to overhype each of these tools, right? People are like, oh, Bitcoin is everything. And look, economically speaking and socially speaking, like, Bitcoin is very fucking important. I think of all of these things, Bitcoin is the most important. It's a billion times more important than Nostr, and it's a hell of a lot more important than the AI shit.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Bitcoin is still fundamentally a tool. If you, like, at least for me, in the context of an entrepreneur, I'm looking at Bitcoin now more pragmatically, in the sense that, hey, I'm running an events app and I want to enable hosts, because hosts are my main user. I want to enable hosts to quickly and easily and cheaply monetize their events. So they should be able to create an event, they should be able to spin up a wallet, and they should be able to get paid for tickets in 60 seconds. Well, what faster way to do that than with Bitcoin? You don't have to do fucking KYC, fiat, fucking Rails, and all the bullshit that goes into creating an event with something like Eventbrite or Luma or any of that. Here you go. Boom. Create an event. It's so easy. It's so beautiful. It's so seamless. It's 10 times better than the thing. So Bitcoin tool number one. Tool number two, Nostr. We want to have a social layer in the event, because what happens when you go to an event? You want to meet some people. Well, then you want to connect with those people. So instead of going to the event, then at the event, getting everyone to download Telegram or WhatsApp, and then get everyone in WhatsApp or Telegram to share their NPubs so they can follow each other on Nostr. It's like fucking 10 different apps to try and have one experience. And it's like, oh, okay, you're at the event. Which cafe do we go to? What place where's the Bitcoin accepting? That's another app, and Google Maps, and fuck that. Here with Satlantis, you've got the social graph in there. You can see the attendees, you can click follow all, or you can follow who you want to follow, and boom, you've got communication, you've got the event, and you've got the chat right in one place. Boom, second tick, done. So Nostr is a tool to make our events app better. Now, number three, the AI piece. For me, AI is not some fucking god in the circuits that is going to come alive and become sentient and rule the world and run everything. No, that's like the nerds are out of their minds. To me, AI is a tool. And it's an automation tool. It is a productivity enhancer. So one way we're using AI, for example, is for building automated tests from a software development side of things. So in order to produce good software, you need to run as many technical automated tests as possible to make sure all of your code is squeaky clean, working, doesn't create regressions, and doesn't fuck things up. Well, instead of spending our developer time on that stuff, we run BugBot and it does it for us. Boom. You've just saved probably an entire person's salary per month using an AI tool, and you've sped things up. That to me is a tick. What's another way we're using AI? Well, to populate the events on our discovery experience in the app, we go out and we have a bot that goes and pulls the events from Luma, from Meetup, from Eventbrite, from all these other places, tags them with interests. So like, this is a Bitcoin event, this is a longevity event, this is a running club, this is whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then it puts the events onto our app, which the host can then claim if they want to control the event on our app. But people can discover. So it's like on the other flip side, because a marketplace has two sides, right? It has hosts and it has attendees. Potential attendees can discover these events, and if that person is a Bitcoiner, they can see all the cool Bitcoin events going on around the world on the app. And even if the event is not hosted on our app, people can click through. It'll open up the other app. It'll open up Meetup or Luma or something like that, and then they can register themselves over there. So we're using it as an enhancer to the app. But that's where, like, I spoke with Marty Bent yesterday, and we talked about this specifically. There has not been, for the last 10 years really, or 10, 15 years, consumer apps have been pretty dead, right? Like everything has been like Slack and Jira and Atlassian, and everything's been sort of like B2B apps over the last decade. The last great consumer apps were like Uber, right? And Airbnb. That was sort of the last era of really great consumer applications.
Yeah, bro.
And yeah, what happened was, since then, the consumer applications got so big that they took so much market share, like that they sort of closed it off. I think we are at the precipice, we're at the dawn of a new age for consumer applications, where small teams and startups like us have this new Bitcoin AI. We can do things that previously would have required a team of maybe 100 people to do. 10 years ago, to build what we want to build today, to build a global events app with instant payments, with a social layer, would have probably taken a team of 50 people and $20 million, right? Now we can do it at a fraction of the cost, at much faster speed, because we have better tools. And that's the way I see all of this. It's like AI is not going to take over the world, and it's not going to change everything. It is just another improvement in software. And it's a significant improvement because we can do better marketing, we can do better code, we can move faster, and we can create a better user experience. Bitcoin gives us superior payments, makes our application global from day one, and Nostr gives us a social layer. bam, we have a fucking great events app that is better than Eventbrite, Meetup.com, or anything else out there.
Cuando dejas tus activos digitales en un exchange o en custodia de alguien más, te expones a riesgos de terceros no deseados. A diferencia del sistema bancario tradicional, Bitcoin te permite tomar el control total de tus fondos utilizando tus propias claves privadas. Esto te permite ser soberano y esencialmente tu propio banco. Al tomar el control de tus Bitcoins puedes evitar riesgos innecesarios de terceros. Almacenar tus Bitcoins en custodia de terceros como los exchanges puede exponerte a ataques de actores malintencionados, gobiernos o estafadores que lo único que quieren es apoderarse de tu dinero. Las billeteras de hardware aumentan la seguridad de tu billetera porque tus claves privadas se almacenan en un dispositivo especializado que no está siempre conectado al internet. Como te he dicho antes, mantener tus claves almacenadas en un dispositivo en línea puede exponerte a factores adicionales de ataque, por lo que se recomienda usar una billetera de hardware al almacenar grandes cantidades de Bitcoin durante largos periodos de tiempo. Jade es una billetera de hardware no custodial para Bitcoins y Liquid que ofrece opciones de firma simple y firmas múltiples. Yo personalmente lo utilizo para almacenar mis Bitcoins, ya que me siento mucho más seguro manteniendo mis Bitcoins en una billetera fría que en una almacenada, por ejemplo, en mi teléfono. Si estás pensando en adquirir uno para ti, no olvides utilizar el código de descuento de nuestro show, BitCorner Podcast. De esta forma estarás apoyando directamente el show y además obtendrás un 10% de descuento para la compra de tu billetera fría. This podcast is brought to you by Bull Bitcoin, the most trusted Bitcoin-only exchange, built for people who actually care about sovereignty. No nonsense, just pure Bitcoin, delivered straight to your own wallet. Buy Bitcoin, withdraw instantly, and take full control of your money. Sign up with the referral code BitCorner Podcast and start stacking the right way with Bull Bitcoin. Yeah, I want to pause a little bit on that and probably double click on this at Atlantis. I want to talk a little bit more on that. Because you're talking a lot about these things, but what inspired you, man, to do all things? I always ask in this podcast, if you have an origin moment for Bitcoin, but was there a single origin story for you or moment where it clicked all for you to develop this thing?
So two origin parts for Satlantis. The first origin story was actually in Salvador in 2023.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was end of 2023. I was walking around in El Salvador with my wife, and we were looking for some coffee. And I was looking on Google Maps, and we found one place that was like 4.8 stars, and the coffee sucked. The next day, we had another place, and it was like 4.9 stars, and the coffee sucked. I was like, "Fuck this shit." And then there was someone, I can't remember who it was, but they were local. They were Salvadorian, and they said, "Go to this place." And I looked it up on Google. I was like, "You sure it's good? It's 4.4 stars." They're like, "No, trust me, it's good. Just go there." So we went there, and the coffee was fucking fantastic. And what hit me was that, all of the shit that we see on Google Maps and TripAdvisor and all the reviews and everything, it's all bullshit. The real signal comes from your social network, comes from people you trust, people you know. So then that's what hit me with the original incarnation of Satlantis. And this maybe it was the aha moment, but it also probably made me build Satlantis too broadly. But the original idea for Satlantis was, hey, could we create a travel and discovery application with social graph information where anywhere you are in the world, the places you find, the events you go to, the people you connect with and everything is influenced by your social graph. So when you see a review or a rating from someone, it's from someone you know. Then you know it's a real one, not some fake bullshit. That was the original idea. Now, that turned out, we still want to get there, but we have to pick very carefully what we do first and in what order, in what sequence, right? So what we discovered, and this is the second aha moment, when we were in Prague a couple months ago for the BTC Prague conference, one of the things we had in the app was we had all of the satellite events were on Satlantis. And what we found was people naturally used the events part of the app, not because we marketed to them, not because we convinced them to use, but because it was a tool and it solved the problem, which is, hey, I can find all of the satellite events here on this one app. So they used it and they RSVP to the events, and it was simple. So what we realized was, okay, we think we can make the biggest impact by building the best possible events app and add Bitcoin payments, add a social layer, and give it to event hosts. Like there is thousands of Bitcoin meetups and Bitcoin communities around the world who are all using meetup.com, which fucking sucks. They're using Eventbrite, they're using Luma, they're using Nomeo, they're using WhatsApp and Telegram and all this shit. We want to give them a superior experience where they can even earn sats if they want to charge for tickets and put it all on Nostr. And I think it's like the most compelling pitch. It's super simple. It's super narrow. It's perfect for the Bitcoin community. And that's who we want to target. So that was the second aha moment, like in Prague, was, hey, let's not build everything to start off with. Like, let's focus on this first, and then we can add shit later.
Absolutely. And if people want to try using it again, because I have it on. Well, actually, no, it's not in beta anymore. I think it's out in iOS, right? I have iOS.
You can download an iOS, exactly. The test flight is still further ahead than the iOS app, but yes, it's on iOS and you can download it.
Oh, okay. Because I have it on test flight, but now I have it on iOS. But my question is that how can people get started if they want to use it?
Yeah, so depends how they want to use it. If you're an event host, the best way to do it is just jump on the website. You can't create an event from the app just yet. The event is created from the desktop experience. So if you're already on Nostr, you can log in with your extension. So like Albi or Nos2x or Amber or whatever else is out there that is an extension. You log in, click the plus button, click create an event. That's it. And it's very simple. It's just like you would create an event for Meetup or Luma or anything like that. You create the event. You can add co-hosts, you select the venue, put your banner image, select your interests, Bitcoin longevity, whatever you want to put in there, put it in there. And then, create the event. You can then share it to your Nostr feed, which then broadcasts it to all of Nostr. So people can see it all over the place, Primal, Damus, Amethyst, whatever. And then you have a whole admin dashboard. People, as they register, you can see who they are. When they register to your event, they auto-follow you on Nostr. So if you're an event host and you want to build your Nostr profile, this is the fucking best way to do it. Every single time you run an event, you actually build your follower list because people automatically follow you. So that's how you build your community on there. So that's for hosts. If you're an attendee, then I would argue the best thing to do is download the app. Download the app, create a profile, select your interests. We have a whole lot of interest in there. So when you're selecting your interests, what you're doing is you're basically building like your own algorithm. And then that will help you discover a couple of things. It'll help you discover content that is right for you, places that are right for you, and events that are right for you. Now, the current app still supports content, places, and events, but slowly by slowly, as I said, we'll diminish the importance of content and we'll elevate the importance of events. So you have a really nice discovery experience that looks like Spotify for discovering events and for discovering places around events. That's kind of the look.
Okay, perfect. We're right now in the middle of the podcast. We're gonna continue talking about Atlantis because there's a lot of like the experience economy, location independence, and some more stuff related to that. But I told you I have a game in the podcast.
Do it.
So my previous guest have a question for my next guest, and you, when we finish the recording, you will have the opportunity to make a question for the next guest. So, oh my God, I'm having a deja vu because this is exactly what happened the last season and just by coincidence. So last season, I finished the podcast with Kiki. Probably you met her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the season 3 and beginning season 4, I also finished with Kiki. So, yeah. So it was funny because I started the season and Kiki made a question, the starting question. So now she's doing the starting question again. So,
there you go.
Anyways,
all right, come on, Kiki, let's see what she got for me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share it with you. Where's Kiki?
After thinking long and hard, my question is, what famous person do you think would have been or is secretly a Bitcoiner? And my example for myself is Anthony Bourdain.
So my one, so they can be dead, right?
Yeah, it can be dead.
Yeah, I mean, totally Tupac or Steve Jobs would have been Bitcoiners.
Oh, wow. Probably, yeah. Why?
There's my answer. Why? I think Tupac, for example, was very interested in justice, righteousness. He had the kind of personality that was a man of virtue. Like, I actually even made a tweet about this a couple of years ago. I said Tupac would have been a Bitcoiner and Biggie would have been a shitcoiner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. So that was that's one. And then I think Steve Jobs also has a similar kind of character. I think Steve Jobs likes to pierce through all the fucking bullshit, and he loves sort of he loved the idea, I should say, of things that were elegant, things that were just like solid, no sort of like frills and crap and all this sort of stuff. And like Bitcoin is pure, pristine money. And he was also the kind of personality who I think wouldn't have been afraid to just say, go fuck yourself, like it's Bitcoin. So yeah, they're my two.
So you think that he had on board Bitcoin so far right now in our iPhones and all the Apple products?
Probably, actually, yeah. I think so. He was the kind of person who would have like broken the mold. He didn't take shit from nobody. So yeah, I think so. Like Steve is rolling in his grave right now with what's happened with Apple, man. Like there's been nothing new since he died. Nothing fucking new. Like Apple should have had a Apple TV. There should have been an Apple car. There should have been an Apple fucking like oven, and all of our appliances in the house should have been Apple. Everything should have worked. But here we are dealing with shit everywhere. And we're still stuck with fucking iPad, iPhone, and the laptop. Like nothing new. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. One last thing about Apple, Tim Cook. If you're watching this, probably not, but if you're watching this, please change the configuration of the mouse. To charge it, you need to plug it in the belly, like here, so you cannot use it. Yeah, it's just a design. You just need to change where's the port, the USB-C port. But yeah. Anyways, I'll continue with Nostr and Satlantis. We're also watching a new way of location independence. And I don't know, borderless living. And I don't know, also people living abroad. So my question is, like, with all that we're facing with the new economies, now they said that also in Atlantis, you can build your own events and everything. So events, and for me, what's more than events? I think it's a place where actually people can collide and talk, because you will be present there. It's not just chatting in the internet, like in Twitter or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, and you also mentioned that now that we had these new three tools, that Bitcoin, Nostr, and AI, what does it mean that for these new generations that, well, you already mentioned a little bit that they can build more stuff, but not just in Bitcoin related. Let's say this is a question for people that are not precisely on the Bitcoin space, but how can they take advantage? Think about it as people that, because I know that some people in El Salvador, not just in El Salvador, but here in the podcast for the first time, and they hear like, all right, they're talking something similar, but I don't get it quite well. So how can I take advantage in my real life of these kind of tools?
Yeah. So let's start with this idea of like the world has gotten smaller and faster, right? Like we're all connected online. We're sort of a couple degrees of separation from each other. You can be in Salvador today, in Brazil tomorrow, in Bali next week, in Japan, Australia. Like it's just a flight away, but when you land, you're going to know people because you're connected to them on Nostr or Twitter or Instagram or something like that. It's like the world is smaller, and people live this kind of lifestyle. They go to different conferences. Like I've been to probably 50 conferences, and there's probably people that I've seen at almost every single one of those 50 conferences. Like I see them all the time, like Canute or Giacomo or this, and it's like, hey, how you doing again? So like you've sort of got that part. It's like the way we live, like travel and movement and mobility is kind of like a lifestyle now. Like people work remotely, like ever since the whole lockdowns thing, like the way we live, the way we work. Oh, fuck. The way we live, the way we work, it's completely changed. And we have, and this isn't with everybody, but there's a growing cohort of people who have some level of location independence, right? Like they can have multiple home bases, they can move around, they can be mobile. So I think that's one sort of pillar to think about. The second pillar is what I call sort of the rise of the experience economy, which you sort of alluded to with like not just events, but kind of like meeting up in meet space. Is the world is more connected online but people have never felt more disconnected.
Connected. I agree.
Like, so there's this like huge desire for people to come together and to meet. Like, I don't mind jumping on a podcast or speaking to someone on Zoom or something like that. But bro, it is 100 times, it is 1,000 times better to catch up with you in real life and sit down and talk and hang out, right? Like, we are physical beings. It means the world. So in the context of what I'm building here with Satlantis, we're sort of shifting the focus now. It's like, okay, we want to get people off their phones. I want to get people into the real world. And this is what I'm calling the experience economy. Like, you experience events, you experience travel, you experience going to places and checking out cool cafes and cool parties and cool restaurants. Or if it's just a cool beach that you want to go to with the friends and just hang out, like, this is what I'm interested in. So for me, that's sort of like the mission or the vision that I'm trying to build for. Like, the world has changed. Like, mobility and location independence is more important, but we're more disconnected than ever. We want to do stuff in real life. So where all of those pieces of the puzzle come together is kind of where the product is. And I truly think we're onto something here.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I think you mentioned here in Barcelona, because you talk about this, about the three C's that in your panel, or connection, community, and creation. How do they shape in our culture? And when I'm talking about our culture now, I'm talking about in Nostr culture.
Yeah, I mean, this is related to exactly what I said. Like, what human beings really want is that they want to build a community. Like, the whole sovereign individual thesis is bullshit, because no one is an individual. Like, we are tribes, we are community, we're social creatures. And as part of that community, what holds it together is the connection we feel. And this is another thing that people get wrong, I think, is they look for like-minded people, but what they should be looking for is like-valued people. That's more important. Like, because if you get like-minded, you get a bunch of people who think the same, but maybe they don't share the same values. But what you really want is people who value the same things, but think differently. They're variant-minded, but like-valued. So that's connection. And then third is, this is sort of part of the curation I view as the antidote to noise. So when you live in a world where anything that you want from an information perspective is just a prompt to ChatGPT away. Like, if you can just Google anything, like if you can just open up Google Maps and see a fucking million places, you don't have value there now. Now you're drowning in a sea of noise. So what you really want now is curation. You want something where, like, if you're going to go to a place, if you're going to do something, if you're going to have a suggestion, you want someone that you trust or someone that you know to have told you, like, a list. And that's why you see on Instagram these days, there is how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of accounts now that are kind of like curation or tastemaker accounts. They create like, oh, these are the best 10 places in Bali to go to. This is the best thing to do here. Like, what are these people doing? They're curating. But the tool Instagram is not great for curation, because all you can do is do a reel, and then someone saves that reel and forgets about it, right? So I think we can do that a little bit better with tools like Nostr. So I think, the 3 C's: community, connection, curation. I think they're hyper important for human beings in general, especially in the digital age where we are more disconnected, more distracted, more alone, all of these things. Like, this is the antidote to those stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I remember when I started the podcast, I was talking with the guest that comes with Bitcoiners, and we were talking about, how do we bring Bitcoin to the mainstream? Now Bitcoin is becoming mainstream thanks to Salvador, but also Trump, and also the Bitcoin treasury companies, blah blah blah. So eventually, Bitcoin it's in the mouths of people. So I have now the same question to you, but in Nostr. How do we bring Nostr to the mainstream?
We do it by not talking about Nostr, by building by building cool products where Nostr is just a tool in the stack. That's it. Like, and honestly, it's the same answer for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, even today, like, yeah, sure, more people are talking about it and it's become more normalized, but it's still in most people's minds.
Really early.
Yeah, we're still really early, but it's still in most people's minds. Bitcoin lives in the category of investment vehicle or speculative instrument or something like that. It's still not money. right? Maybe for 1% of 1% of us, it is. But for most people, it's not money yet. So, when Bitcoin, I'll tell you how these win. In the next 5-10 years, we're going to see really cool products get built, whether it's a travel app, whether it's a SaaS tool like Slack, whether it's an Airbnb app, whether it's a new competitor, Uber, whatever. Like, you're going to see new products, and there's going to be two things in there that come standard. Bitcoin is a payments mechanism, and there'll be some sort of social element in there that makes the application better. So you'll see events apps, which is what we're doing, right? So you'll see that. Now, none of these companies will be Bitcoin companies or Nostr companies. They're just going to be events company, travel company, transport company, communications company, whatever. They're going to be actual businesses, but they just use Nostr and Bitcoin in the stack. That's how we take this shit mainstream. Not by talking about fucking Nostr and Bitcoin and why Nostr is better and all this shit. No, the devs will come, they'll build it because it's superior. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking like also when we use the internet, we don't think in the protocols, right? We don't think about the HTTPS. We just use it, but we don't think what is behind that. So
yeah,
also
imagine if there was a HTTPS podcast. People go, "What?"
could you imagine? Probably could have been if we had podcast by that time,
God
But
help
I
me,
don't know.
man.
But yeah,
Yeah.
probably different times. Yeah. Yeah. I had a question in mind that for you, what surprised you or excited you the most building on this thing, like in Nostr, actually working on it?
Look, for me, it's more people know me for my writing than building stuff, but I've always been a
Okay.
builder. I like building, and I really enjoy working with the team, with the product guys, working with customers, talking to them, all this sort of stuff. For me, I guess it's not so much maybe one surprise is I was more bullish on the places element of our app, where pins and maps and all that sort of stuff. But what we found was that more people wanted a really good events app, and maybe that's the big surprise. I was surprised that there is no good events app with Bitcoin native ticketing. That's the fucking surprise. Like, there's nowhere I can go right now and create a meetup and make $5 tickets in Bitcoin.
It's crazy.
It doesn't exist. Like that's probably the surprise, I must say. Forget all the other bullshit that I said. That's the surprise. Yeah. And the biggest surprise is that I didn't fucking realize this earlier. Like, I'm an idiot. I was sitting there building all this other shit, and I was like, wait a minute, this is staring me right in the face. So here I am. We're going to build the best possible events app in the world, and it's going to be Bitcoin native, and we're going to orange pill a bunch of people in the process.
That's cool. Hey, we're gonna start wrap it up because I think we have just like
Vamos.
10 minutes or less. But yeah, before that, this is Salvador and Bitcoin podcast, and you have been on Salvador several times. So if you can share a little bit about your experience there, and because you have been there a couple of times, if you have seen whatever you have seen, the good, bad, progress or not, because I also encourage the people to not just read on the media, to ask people who has been in El Salvador and to share their experience, either good or bad, whatever. I just want you to share, your experience there, personal and also in the events.
The big standout for me for Salvador is the progress that it's made over the last couple of years. So when I first went there, it was
2021.
2021, but it was in July, so it was before Bitcoin law came into effect. It was kind of right after the announcement. So I went there. That was the first time, and yeah, it was like pretty rough. Things haven't been cleaned up yet, but it was. I was already a little bit used to it because I was traveling through Latin America a little bit. So to me, it was just sort of Latin America, but maybe a little bit more rough. Whatever. But then something I noticed that each time I came back, I've been there 4 times now, it improved. So to me, the big takeaway is that things are on the up, and that's not the same with every other place. Many other places are actually getting worse as time goes by. So that's sort of one thing. What I will say though, for the people who just assume that means everything is perfect, it's like, no, fuck no. Like Salvador is starting from very far behind. So even though everything's on the up, it's going to take a long time for all sorts of things to get fixed. I know lots of people go there and they're like overly optimistic. They believe everything they see on Twitter or podcasts or this and that, and they think like, oh, I'm coming to paradise. And then all of a sudden they can't get this and they can't do that and they can't or one thing that drives me crazy in El Salvador is the fucking roads, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know.
Like I always say that it's like Stevie Wonder built the roads like with his eyes closed or something. Like, you take one fucking turn left that's wrong, bro, you'll be driving around for another 3 hours to try and get back to like where you were supposed to go to. It drives me nuts. So that's going to take a long time to get fixed. And I think the reality is people need to go there with some humility and say, hey, it's improving, but it's a long way from perfect. And, particularly if you come from like a previous Western world country, like you're going to have a certain level of expectations that are not going to be met if you don't understand that. So, you go to El Salvador for progress, not for perfection, right? And that to me is very important for for people to realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
That's
my
why yeah, no, that, and I was asking you this because at first, of course, every Bitcoiners that go, I asked that, can you share the positive side of El Salvador? But then I get comments that, yeah, if you ask this way, you're talking just the positive things, and I was like, yeah, but I also want people know that it's not perfect, but we're in the progress, we are in the right path. So what I'm trying to say here is that ask the people that go to El Salvador, and you will see the progress. The actual progress is not because we also have a lot of shit thrown to El Salvador that that well related to politics or whatever, or also that Bitcoin failed. There's a lot of shit, but the best way to know the truth is to ask into other people traveling El Salvador. So that's why I also like to ask the experience there. Some people tell me that don't like pupusas. I was like, no, just kidding. No, but I mean, it's the reality of it. And what I encourage, and I always say it actually in most of the episodes, is that, yeah, I agree, we come from behind, but the good part is that now we have the tools and the opportunities to build. So yeah, we're building, but it will take a long road. Rome wasn't built in 1 year or one day, so.
Dude, people are so fucking impatient these days, man. Like, we live in the TikTok generation where everyone wants everything in
Absolutely.
It's like fucking hell, man. Like it takes years to turn a business around. Like go try and turn a fucking country around. Like it's a process. And this is like people always piss me off when they do shit like that. They're like, "Oh yeah, but Bitcoin's been around for 15 years." It's like, motherfucker, Bitcoin's designed to be around for 1,000 years. Like hold your horses. Like Bitcoin wins in 100. Like, and it's the same thing with the country. It's like, oh, Bukele's been around for 4 years and blah, blah. It's like, yeah, bro, 4 years is nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like it takes time. So shut the fuck up. And if you think you can do it better yourself, go do it. Otherwise, shut up. So like, it just drives me crazy. Like the sort of the keyboard warriors who've got a lot to say, but don't actually do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question is, and we're gonna finish the podcast. I was going to be mine, but I just remind that last season I recorded an episode, and we were supposed to have that episode. So someone made a question for you, and I'm looking up for this, and because it was related to Bitcoin and also to quantum computer. I remind that it was quite interesting.
So when quantum computing is here, and we know that the old, pre-2010 wallets are going to be exposed, but they haven't moved. Do we as Bitcoiners have a responsibility to move those for them? Or do we just say, tough, we shouldn't touch them, but potentially a hacker drains those wallets?
It's a very well framed question, actually, because
yeah, I can give you time to think about it.
It's not just the usual bullshit quantum computing question like about is this thing gonna break everything, blah blah. Like takes into consideration the fact that at some point some of those early addresses are going to be susceptible to being reverse engineered. Do we have a duty to move those coins? I don't think so. My gut feeling is that it's not our duty. I think it's whoever can get access to those coins is going to get access to those coins, and they're going to do what they want with them. And those coins will end up back in circulation, basically, and that will create economic velocity, and it'll probably have some impact on the price and purchasing power of Bitcoin as they come back into circulation. But yeah, I think the answer is no, we don't have a responsibility to move those coins for anyone else. They are what they are, and it's how the coins will come back into circulation. Because if you think about it, someone's going to take them, quote unquote, steal them, but then they'll use them. So those coins will come back around, and that's just what's going to happen.
All right. That's very good and interesting answer. All right. Yeah. My last question will be like, what's next for Atlantis and Nostr? What can we expect
next? For Atlantis. Okay. So the next thing is we are going to be the official side event app for adopting Bitcoin. So all of the satellite events. Yeah. So all the satellite events, everything's going to happen on Satlantis. Okay. So I don't know if you're going to be running an event there, but you just create it on Satlantis. You can add it to the Adopting Bitcoin calendar, and off we go. We are going to also partner with a bunch of other conferences. So Amsterdam, La BitConf, BTC MENA, Bitcoin Japan, all these sort of things. So we're basically, one of our strategies to be the satellite event partner for all of these conferences, number one. Number two is we want to get every single meetup that is a Bitcoin meetup in the world on Satlantis. So I would love an introduction. If you know the meetup organizers in Salvador, around the place, please introduce me. I'd love to get them to get off meetup.com.
We have several. So.
Yeah. Let's get them all on Satlantis, man. That's the place. That's my mission over the next 6 months. I want every single Bitcoin meetup, every single Bitcoin conference around the world to be on Satlantis. Give us a beautiful marketplace of events so that anyone can find them, anyone can attend, anyone can host. It'll be amazing. All
right, perfect. What about Barcelona? I know that you have Jordi here, but I don't know if Jordi is working with the guys in Barcelona.
Yeah, so he's got one of the meetups, because I know there was like a fork with the Bitcoin meetups in Barcelona. So one of them is on Satlantis. The other one hopefully will come soon.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I think we're gonna, because I also one of the organizers of the Barcelona conference. You know, the ones that we made this year. So hopefully next year we're gonna have it again. So
fuck yeah, let's do it. We will help you set up the calendar. By next year, we'll have an agenda feature on there, so that way you as a conference organizer have end-to-end support. You'll have ticketing, agenda, side events, everything in one place, and you'll be able to spin that up in 10 minutes. You don't have to fuck around with a website and all the other bullshit. You can have your unique link, and you can run your whole event there, Bitcoin ticketing, all of it, all in one place. It'll be so good.
Right. Perfect, man. So excited for this.
All right, man.
Svetski, Alex, thank you for coming for the podcast. Thank you for being the first guest on the new season. Thank you, man, for your time.
Gracias, mi amigo. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate all of it, man. I look forward to catching up, doing some stuff together. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we're ready to start the season. See you next week. Ciao.